There we go, the red dot is on. So I am going to do a screen share, folks. It says version 6 because it's just changed slightly this morning. I've put a few more things in, but we will share this with you once the meeting's over. And once if you want to take into account any other amends as well. Right. Okay, so just in terms of the structure, let's just go through that firstly. So at the moment it's draft. Absolutely, that should probably be draft version 6 actually, rather than version 2. So this is, I would say we're getting closer to completion here. Well, getting closer to a final version. We're not quite there yet. So, and I think this is really important. I wanted to highlight that, you know, this is an MOU, it's not a contract. So there is a slight difference in that. So it's about a willingness to work together. Some of the wording that I've changed is in terms of the City of Nature framework that we're putting together, we've changed the wording in our delivery document. So that just reflects that, but it's still the same 5 themes. We talk a little bit about the importance of environmental justice. That is absolutely driving the MOU. We also then talk about kind of, well, actually, you know, yes, the whole point of the Beacon Alliance is that it will support the delivery of the City of Nature. So we just make it clear what those kind of things are. And given it's the Commonwealth Games Legacy Fund that is supporting the setup of this alliance, this was raised on Monday that we should probably have some outcomes. So I'm just waiting for the Commonwealth Games team to come back to me on that, but we'll put that in once I've got some key things from them. And then in terms of kind of how the alliance will work, we've got a few subsections here. So we've got scope of the alliance, which I'll come back to in a bit more detail. We've got Beacon member responsibilities. And then we've also got business team responsibilities, and I'll go through kind of how those two different groups are different. I've also talked about BCC specifically because I think it's really important that we make clear, as BCC is almost kind of a bit of the glue that's going to hold us together, because, you know, as an alliance, we're not just saying to you, just go off and do it yourselves. We want to work with you. And I think we've heard quite clearly that the BCC needs to play a crucial role, not to be in charge, because this is a collaborative, and the roundtable idea that we've talked about previously. And actually, I need to change this word because I don't like the word. Sorry, Debbie, that's not back in again. I'm so used to BCC type governance structures where we have chairs for everything. This isn't about chairing for me, actually. And we've kind of gone around full circle. I started off thinking that we needed a chair for the alliance, but actually, if we go back to the whole point of the alliance, which is almost like a round table, that actually that was just, there's no hierarchy. So this to me probably is more that it's supporting the monthly meetings. I think that's probably a better way of saying it. So I'll just type that in for now. Multitasking is not my key skill, so I might go quiet while I type. So I think it's a myth that supposedly women are able to multitask. This one definitely isn't. So, and again, I popped in here and highlight, you know, if these feel like too much for, you know, alliance members to do, we can shift some of this into this space here as well. So, and then we go into kind of ways of working, and then also meetings frequency and quality, and then also into kind of the appendices. I think you've all seen the EJ map so many times. We just need to stick it in as a picture. And this currently, just so that everybody is clear, is a list of alliance members as it currently stands. So I'll just highlight these for now. And before we get into the detail, has anybody got any initial comments about, in terms of the overall structure, is anything missing from this? If I can just pause there for a minute, just to, because I want to, rather than just talk at you for, you know, the whole hour and a half that we've got, I'm really keen to kind of hear discussion. So rather than detail, because we'll go through the detail, when you look at that as a document and you see the headings and you see the way it's been kind of structured, is there anything that really feels that it's missing, that it needs to have? And if it's a no, that's fine. Perhaps for now it's good enough. And this won't be the last time that the MOU changes. You know, we want the City of Nature Alliance to be in existence for at least 25 years in line with the delivery framework. So, and I would argue that it's probably not not the right thing to have this document stay the same for 25 years. So I'll just check the chat quickly to see if anything has come up there. Okay. So I've not heard anyone say that, you know, no, there is a massive gap missing, which is great. So, okay, brill. So let's carry on. I'll go back to screen share because I can't see people when I'm on screen share. Oh, there is a hand gone up. Sorry.
Just a late one from me. Yeah, just briefly looking at that, I think it says that the original focus will be on is it the 5 sites that you talked about before?
Highgate, yes.
I think if the focus is going to be solely on those sites and not kind of the wider area, and please correct me if I'm wrong, just maybe if that's made clear that the involvement of some parties such as like Canal and River Trust would be either a bit further down the line, or they would be kind of outside of those specific green spaces themselves. Does that make sense?
Make complete sense, Gavin. Actually, so even though the focus is on Borsey and Highgate, so yeah, this is about semantics and language, absolutely. So which is so important here. So yes, the focus is, and I completely get it why CRT are thinking, well, actually, if we're just working on 5 POSs, we're not going to put a canal in the middle of those POSs. So, but yes, I think you're right. We still, it's about the whole ward as well, Gavin. So yes, there is focus on perhaps some of the engagement work actually happening on those POS sites, all the skills and training. But absolutely, we would like CRT to be absolutely involved in how we connect those POSs to canals and waterways and so forth and what have you. So so yeah, we can amend that wording. So yeah, so just to kind of reiterate, yeah, it's not just about the sites, it's about the ward, but there will be a focus on the 5 POS, but it needs to be wider. So
yeah, that's fine. No, that's all
make that amendment. Brill, thank you for picking that up, Gavin. Chris, thank you.
Yeah, just a really quick one because I couldn't see it on the screen share. In the previous version, page 1, a healthy city. Have we taken out the words nature rich, or are they still in?
So,
because that to me was quite sort of confusing, and actually surely we're trying to make all spaces nature rich, so I'm not quite sure what that meant. Well, I know what it means, but it just seemed a bit odd.
That was a request from a partner to go
right.
in. They actually haven't said they want to join the Alliance, actually, Chris. So, and I think, you know, it didn't quite fit in. If I just do a screen share quickly again.
If we've taken it out, that's great. I just couldn't. Thank you. Eyesight's not. That's better. Yeah, much better.
So
thank you.
It didn't really quite fit in when we redrafted the wording, so
yeah.
It has kind of come out. So, but you know, we talk about a green city and about the importance of nature, so that should hopefully hit that bit really.
Yeah, no, it was the phrase nature rich that I couldn't quite get my head round, so I'm glad to see it's come out.
Okay, all right, brilliant. Okay, Debbie, I can see you're responding to the chat, which is great, so thank you for doing that for me. Okay, I'm going to suggest we move on to the actual detail of some of the bits, not kind of the introduction and stuff, because you've all seen that before. And I will make the text bigger as well. I'm conscious of, you know, when you're kind of, I can read my screen quite easily, obviously. But yeah, just, so is this kind of size work good for people?
Yeah, works for me.
Brill, okay.
With a bit of peering.
Okay, folks. So in terms of the scope of the Alliance, what we're talking about here is, so we want people to be members and then also consider being part of the business team. And I'm not sure this is the right wording, but I think we try and explain the wording. It's really hard to differentiate between different roles and make it sound as though, without making it sound like a hierarchy or a structure. And we're trying to get away from hierarchy here. And and Vic raised this point to me as well. But what is the decision making? Do some people get a bigger vote than others? And actually, if we're going to have a round table, and the whole idea of that is that people have an equal say, that wouldn't really work for me. But so the use of the different terms here is just to kind of, I guess, make clear that there are different roles that you can play in the Alliance. So you could be a member but not contribute to anything in Borsley and Highgate, for instance, because the City of Nature vision, or the framework for it, is very much around the whole city. So and the business team could actually change over the next, well, it will change over the next 25 years, because the kind of delivery that we need in certain wards will be different across the city. There'll be other skill sets and so forth around that will, for instance, in the north of Birmingham, what we're going to the south of Birmingham, for instance. So, and also at the moment, we're just starting out as well. So what we're going to start off with absolutely isn't what we're going to end up with in the next 25 years at all. So so that's just the first thing, the differentiation between a member and a business team. The idea of the business team is that they'll bring in really specialist expertise, kind of in terms of delivering key elements of the City of Nature framework, but also they'll be driving some of that delivery in the City of Nature framework. But this bit is really important, again, about what Vic's point about who has a say in what happens. We would really want the business team to make sure working, and BCC is part of the business team, don't forget, that all members have an opportunity to kind of guide the work as well. And this is just about the timescales as well, and that this MOU is about the first 5 years, really. And I think maybe we could put in a clause here that actually you don't have to wait until 2027. Maybe we put something along the lines of can be reviewed earlier, because again, 5 years is a long time as well. Just make a note of that. This makes clear in terms of the ways of working. We're not looking at the whole city all in one go, because we can't. East Birmingham in itself is bigger than most local authorities. It's got a population of, I think, 240,000, and a lot of local authorities are kind of, Solihull's 200,000, or just under. I used to work in Derby, which was about 210,000. So, it might feel more feasible to kind of do something across the whole borough in those areas, but definitely not Birmingham. So this is about targeting the Alliance on this as well. Now there was a comment made really about kind of making sure that the business as usual for Alliance members also tries to reflect the City of Nature work as well. And we can't obviously make organisations do this, but it did feel like quite a useful thing to reference. The more we can start talking about this, the more coordination and coherence we'll get. So if every Alliance member could make reference to at least one of the 5 themes as part of their business as usual, that to me would be a fantastic outcome. Oh, Debbie, if you could admit the person who's waiting, please, that would be super. Thank you. And also, there's no kind of sign-up time deadline to be a member of the Alliance as well. We want to make that clear, that just because you haven't filled out the Google form by the date that we gave, you can still join. So, and again, BCC will help support manage that process as well. If I just kind of go into just the BCOM member responsibilities and then the business team as well, then we'll pause for a kind of discussion, if that's okay. So in terms of membership, Really want to get your views on this. So, you know, when I said that you can be a member of the Alliance but not a delivery partner, you might decide that actually, yeah, you want to contribute to this, and you can do that in lots of different ways, but not deliver in Worsley and Highgate, for instance. You might not have a presence there geographically, you might not have staff that work there or can travel there, but actually, do you know what? You can be part. What we want to have going forward are monthly Alliance establishment meetings. We're still creating the Alliance whilst we're getting it off the ground, if that makes sense. We want members to be part of that discussion. So, for instance, when we get to the CRM bit of the discussion, we haven't spent much time on that, but we know it's needed. There are so many other things that are going on at the moment around CRMs and the wider system. There's a CRM being created for Commonwealth Games that will hold 25,000 people's details on there. BCC itself has a number of CRMs. Other places, all other organisations have their own CRM. So we need a really kind of dedicated, I think, discussion around that, and we would like Alliance members to be part of that discussion. We're creating content for our Beacon web pages, which is held within BCC. We need Alliance members to help us create that. We need you to promote the EJ work on your own websites and social media. So we get all this cross-fertilisation, and it's really interesting now, kind of, we're seeing organisations on Twitter especially, which is the social media platform that I use, you know, retweeting each other's tweets and things, and it's happening much more often now than I've ever seen it before. We found Earth Stories to be really powerful as a way of people just talking about green spaces, rather than fill out a 10-question questionnaire about, you know, what do you like, what don't you like. We've let people tell their story, whether it's through a poem, a video, a drawing, and they're all featuring as part of our delivery document. We want members to promote the work of other Alliance members and also to promote the Green Champion Network. Now, what we're suggesting, and that's why I've put a comment in here, really welcome thoughts on this, and we'll come back to let people want to pause and have got a specific comment. We absolutely think we need to offer, and you know, I used the wrong word actually, and and a member of my team very nicely told, in a very nice way, corrected me, and I was thinking about it as an incentive, and actually it's not an incentive at all. People are giving up their time and space and resources. They're choosing to come to this meeting when they could have done something else with the community, for instance. And I think we need to, I absolutely know we need to recognise that. It's not a huge amount of money because we want money for delivery, but we think, you know, £2,000 for the first 12 months of this MOU. We want to offer Alliance members to be able to kind of do these activities here, so that, and that might buy maybe kind of perhaps 2.5 weeks of someone's time if you felt that you needed to kind of have some backfill to be able to do other things or what have you, or just as a recognition that your time costs some money, and then you have that funding to do other things if you needed to. So in a very similar way that we did Earth grants and the Earth Stories grants to local community groups, we gave them half the money up front to be able to allow them to do what they needed to do, and the other half was given on the completion of the activity. So again, our City of Nature officer would manage that whole process in terms of grant, in terms of, you know, supplying this grant to members. We do need to be careful about kind of what the cap is for this. So as much as we want to be inclusive, you know, if we had, say, I don't know, 75 organisations signing up, that would be 150,000 gone in the first kind of, you know, before we've even done anything. So that needs some thought, and I'd welcome some, discussion about how we balance that. Do we have an initial cap for the first, you know, year, so we can allow it to get off the ground, and perhaps as we do sustainable funding, do we then work that in to the pot that needs to be raised? So a question there for you to come back to if you can. So business team, this is kind of, and this isn't a fixed team as well. So the MOU will be quite fluid in terms of who's on there at that moment in time. So, you know, we need someone or organisations to take responsibility for developing action, stroke friends groups, volunteer groups to really get some local engagement in the area. We need someone to really support us with biodiversity enhancements. We need people, organisations to support early years education in terms of doing our Young Green Champion, Little Green Champion programme. We need healthy activities on offer as well in terms of nature connectedness. So, we had some great examples from Whitton Lodge who've done a huge amount of things on nature connectedness. But our Friends of Park groups do it as well. Just putting my community hat back on, we're about to launch a series of kind of wildlife walks in our park because it is full of wildlife. It's very kind of wild in some elements. So, and we also need organisations that are going to actually help to create and manage the Alliance action plans as well in the other wards. So we've got the delivery in Borstal here, in Borstal and Highgate, sorry, but we also need to create the action plans in the other wards that we talked about. We also need now. We're really happy to hear kind of your thoughts on how much of these stay with kind of Alliance members other than BCC and how much goes into this bit here. So could an organisation, take on a grant from the Commonwealth Games, for instance, to really put some time and effort into working out a finance model, really? So that could be, for instance, working with a grant writer and then, giving them a really clear brief about actually, so going forward, these other wards need these kinds of activities, and these are the kind of organisations we think will deliver them. So are you able to support a bid that those organisations can actually then kind of go for? Just an idea. We also want people to spend some time in supporting community groups to fundraise in those wards as well. This one I think is a really big one. I'm not sure it is going to stay with Alliance members because it's a massive job. So, but we do need an organisation, whether it's BCC or a different Alliance member, to take on the Green Champion volunteer coordination role. But we also need someone to take, I think, a bit of a role around making sure that the Alliance membership is growing and is working. So, and again, that could be BCC rather than maybe rather than an Alliance member, a different Alliance member, because BCC will be part of the Alliance membership as well. So in terms of what we're currently thinking that the business team as BCC could do, so I'm going to take out the word chairing. We would commit to supporting the monthly meetings of the Alliance, so we don't have to add that burden onto community organisations. We could take on the role of procuring a CRM. Well, I say procure, that might not be necessarily to buy something new, but it will be to find a solution for a CRM, working with other Alliance members. We're the Landover Public Spaces, so that's a key role for us in terms of supporting community groups to make things happen, and also we're the provider of the 150k seed fund. And also importantly, we're going to be providing project management support as well. So I've talked for quite a long time there. I'm going to pause and just, I hope I haven't kind of like exploded people's brains by going through all this. Have gone through it quite quickly, but really keen to hear your thoughts about this, around kind of payment of membership. And really keen to hear about the balance, whether this is right in terms of non-BCC business team responsibilities, or whether we need to have some things move from here to here. Okay, I'm going to go off screen share so I can see who wants to come in. Or if you think it's fine and it's good enough start and we should try and go for it, then equally happy to do that as well. Go on, Chris. Thank you.
Go on, yeah. I think it's really good. I think there are the broadly speaking, the roles and the tasks are sort of in the right place. I think the offering of an incentive or an enhancement to be part of the Alliance, certainly in the first year, is really positive. I think one of the things we need to think about is how we can allow that to continue and make that sustainable. Because I think as soon as it might be a real good thing, because when people, if other organisations who aren't currently part of the Alliance realise, oh, there's £2,000 up for grabs here, our membership might all of a sudden blossom and grow tremendously. You know, because to smaller community-based organisations, £2,000 is quite a lot of money. So I think that's how we think about that is really important. And my other comment, which I think I've made before, is about the CRM. And I really think that if we're thinking of a CRM, we really need to think about how it sits outside BCC, because I really do have concerns that it will be, you know, so we think about the Commonwealth Games CRM you mentioned, and that is people who've signed up to volunteer, signed up to various various things, who are committed to being part of the Commonwealth Games, from what I see. But I think when we're talking about Bill and Joe and Fred, who volunteer either on an ad hoc or a weekly, monthly basis, or are citizens, if you like, in the broadest sense, I do think there'll be hesitancy about people signing up to a database which is owned, if you like, by BCC. I really think there are potential challenges there, in so much as people might worry, as I've said before, worry what their data is going to be used for, as part of BCC. However, I think if it was part of one of the business partner organisations role, or then I think that would take away a lot of that worry that some of our volunteers might have. So that would be my only thought on roles and bits in there. I do feel, I get the point, Debbie. Data will be shared. It's not about data sharing. It's more about, actually, if Joe, who lives in Ladywood, hasn't paid his council tax, but regularly volunteers for, one of the Ladywood Parks groups, actually, is he going to want to register his involvement on a BCC website? Because is he going to be concerned that might link to him not paying his council tax, or something like that? Or take Vera, who hasn't been double jabbed, or hasn't had a jab at all, or has got vaccine hesitancy. And I know it won't, but is that registering as a volunteer somewhere going to link into the database of people who have been jabbed and who haven't been jabbed? And I think there's lots of potential hurdles about, because at the end of the day, we want to build a database which is shared, accessible to all, and actually has the biggest number of people on it we can possibly achieve. And I just think it might, if it's BCC owned, it will put hurdles in the way of that. So I think we need to think about that. But all else really, I think, fits really well and is very good.
Thank you, Chris. I can see Gareth's got his hand up. If I can just grab you while you've got your camera on. In terms of the balance between, so I keep making the difference between BCC as an Alliance member and other Alliance members, not because we're better or worse than anybody else, but just obviously BCC is a very different organisation to our community groups our community organisations that are here. That balance between kind of what we've put under, the non-BCC business team and the business team. I mean, just, you know, you said you felt quite comfortable. Just wanted to just double check that again, Chris, whether you thought anything should move into BCC that isn't already there.
I don't think anything should move in. I think the CRM should move out. That's my only.
So just because we kind of take over, perhaps procure. Well, yeah, that's quite interesting, actually. Yeah, I think what I was envisaging was that if we take the pressure off Alliance members to procure it, then actually most CRM systems, it's about access. So access could be passed over to an organisation who wants to do that.
That we need to add that clarity in then. So if it's about the actual procurement of the CRM, then that's a different thing to the ownership of the CRM. I think, you know, then if the CRM is an alliance thing, which I think Debbie is suggesting within the chat, then that slightly takes it away. I can just, as I say, my slight fear is that we, you know, where people submit their data, there's that line on the bottom: Birmingham City Council will hold your data, maintain your data, blah 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 blah, the standard GDPR lines, if you like. And I think that's the point at which we need to be cautious, because that's the point at which people will choose not to return information.
Yeah.
Well, some people will. Some people will.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And I think we all, you know, we need to remember, under the environmental justice, under the social justice, and the various justices we're considering here, that we're working or hoping to involve a wider section of the city's population, many of whom are resident in deprived areas and struggling areas, and many of whom, and I'm not making generalizations here in a way, but many of whom will be people who have these sort of challenges and problems, whether it's around council tax, whether it's around VAX, whether it's around, you know, whatever, and they're kind of a group of people, or a sector of the population, who unfortunately are very wary about giving their information to anybody, and we want these people, these groups are the groups we want to get involved, or more involved in volunteering, and that in itself, I think is part of a challenge.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Gareth, you've been waiting really patiently.
Yeah, thank you. The allocation of the responsibilities between the members, the council, and the business team sort of seems about right. I think that's quite a common sense way of approaching it. I mean, I know I've sort of fed back separately as well. It's just some of our thoughts really on volunteering, green champions, and the CRM systems and those things, and certainly what Chris was just saying, you know, that there is that, you know, those kind of challenges that any kind of database would need to overcome, including who owns it and how data is shared. But I kind of think there's a more fundamental sort of arrangement that needs to be thought through and worked through, really, just in you know, how the green what is the model for the green champions, what is the model for volunteer sharing, what is the way that organizations would work together on this. And obviously it's difficult because we're trying to you know, get things set up now, and obviously these are all things that will be developed in time, so I know it's kind of difficult to kind of do everything in an exactly sequential way, but you know, I feel like getting that established is kind of the key, and then the questions around what kind of CRM, or you know, or indeed who should be almost the person who's, or the group who are going to lead it, will kind of come quite naturally after we've got a sort of a clear understanding of how that piece of work can happen and can be sustained. So I suppose, so my point would be, so it's kind of useful to have these things in the agreement, but then, yeah, I think like you said earlier, just recognizing a bit of flexibility. So we might find that actually, once we've worked all of that through, that there's a, you know, what we need is a working group of people to sort of take a particular strand of activity forward within the group, or you know, maybe there's a you know, just a slightly different approach to a CRM or something like that. So I suppose it's just recognizing that we can't over specify at this stage, because we have to do the work to come up with a good way of working together in these different areas.
That's great, Gareth. And I've just noticed the little person's head in your screen. So
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So I'm missing my little
she's
boy.
got COVID. She's had COVID, so she's at home for a week. So we're back to the.
It's very quiet. So letting you work, Gareth. That's brilliant. So anyway, yeah, I'm just, yeah, Easter started school like on Friday, so missing him at the moment. So anyway, what you've just said makes perfect sense, Gareth, and actually we're under no pressure to spend this entire £150,000 next week. So let's try and spend elements that we can in terms of getting delivery in Borsey and Highgate, and the bigger stuff can wait, absolutely. So we can use the £2,000, you know, kind of let's call it enhancement payment. Maybe that's a better word than an incentive necessarily, but a recognition that we want your time meetings. And as you say, we use those monthly meetings to work out these thorny issues, because it does need time. And it might be that naturally those that have more of an interest in this come together for, rather than everybody, for a discussion. And then once, you know, we'll be working with you on this. You know, we're here until March at the, you know, at the very earliest. So sorry, at the very latest. And we can use that time whilst other things are happening, and, you know, delivery in Borsey and Highgate is being done, because absolutely we don't need a Green Champions network set up for the delivery in Borsey and Highgate, not at all. We just need it to start happening. And then it's about, actually, once we've got the volunteers and what have you, then it's about how we kind of form that into a bit more of a kind of a coordinated effort. So yeah, absolutely, that can wait. And I think it's a really good point, Gareth. So because what we don't want to do is just spend all the money and then realise, actually, oh, we can't really change it now, and I wish we'd waited. So as we said previously, the money needs to be spent by March 2023. That's when it needs to all be spent by. So, but they are looking for outcomes to start happening by kind of, you know, the end of the games, which is July next year. I should know the date of Commonwealth Games, but I think it's July, August. So I was going to say, don't quote me on that, but I'm being recorded. So anyway, okay, brill. Oh, Gary, do you want to come in? Thank you, Gareth.
Yeah, just a couple of points from me, I suppose. The business as usual bit that you spoke about, I think is vital. I think there's a lot of groups that will be doing a lot of work anyway as part of what they already do. And it's important that we try and capture that as part of the work that the Alliance is doing to show those benefits. So how we look at doing that. I think having been involved in groups when it's first been set up like this, and you've got people that haven't worked together before and haven't got that relationship, I think it's important that maybe BCC take that bit of a pivotal role to start with, to take that lead, to bring the group together, and we have that direction. And then certainly as time goes on, I can see the group will come together. BCC will maybe take that a little bit more of a step back, and the Alliance becomes self-fulfilling and manages itself, which is obviously what we desire with this. And I just think around the funding, I think an offer of £2,000 to small groups is fantastic. But I think we certainly need to look at what projects do they want their money for, and make sure that we haven't got competing groups with what one work is doing, that the other group is going to come up and dig it all up. You know, what one wants to plant wildflowers, and the other one wants to dig it all up and turn it into an allotment, so that we're not wasting our money that way, or that they want to do the same thing. So if groups come together and they want the money, and they both want to do an allotment or grow fruit trees or turn it into a wild garden, then it's that introduction together to say, yeah, okay, half the money between you work together, and we have that work done.
Absolutely. So this is probably a good opportunity to start bringing in. We've decided that we're not going to have a formal tender procurement process. We just think we still need an open process, and a transparent process. But we think that the tender is just a bit too blunt and encourages competition rather than collaboration. So the council are very used to running grant-funded programmes. So we did the same approach for Earth Stories as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Debbie's probably, this is probably a painful thing to bring up for Debbie, because it wasn't the easiest process. Sorry, Debbie, but it's, we had I think we were offering, I can't even remember now, £1,500 maybe? It was a figure between £1,500 and £2,000 to collect 25 Earth Stories. And so we used the grant process that our Neighbourhood Development Support Unit do for giving out grants to organisations, and we circulated it far and wide. It was out there on social media and went out to loads of partners and so forth, and so that as many people as possible could see that it was available. And we also put a page on our website for the Naturally Birmingham project for future parks, where all the paperwork was and everything, so people knew where to go and find it. And we were just really clear in that grant form that, there's this much money available, these are the outcomes that we expect. And we had like 3 key questions that we then scored people's applications. And I don't think we said no to anybody, actually, just because, for that, it was quite a small piece of work and with a really, really focused outcome. So the plan is still to have a grant process. I guess we might not be in a position to be able to offer 3 or 4 different organisations the same, pot of money for, say, let's say there's a £10,000 grant for community engagement with schools, for instance. Even though I'm being recorded, don't quote me on this, we haven't quite worked this all out yet, but what we probably couldn't do, let's say 4 organisations all applied for that, be able to kind of release 40k, because we need other things to happen as well. So we would be scoring answers and so forth, but we'd be doing it in a very standardised way. And what we'd really hope is that actually, before people put in their grants, their responses to any grants, the organisation actually have a conversation with each other and say, actually, do you know what, we think we're a better fit for this, what do you think, and so forth. So actually, or as you say, Gary, we could have 2 or 3 organisations putting a grant form submission together to say, right, we'll do this bit, we'll do that bit, and we'll do this bit. So, and the grant process is so much, compared to a tender process, is, there's no portals involved, and there's no kind of, if you wanted to ask a question, you haven't got to go through a clarification process and what have you. So that is what we're currently working for, and we're still working to the 1st of October as a time scale to get those out. We need to get all the paperwork ready and so forth, and what have you. So we will be, and we need to finalise the approach, but there will be a separate, a process. If you want to be a member to get the £2,000, we'll need to be assured that you're happy to commit to the things that we've talked about, and then we can start that, give that final, and then also another thing to be wary of is if you're not already on our system as a BCC supplier. I think probably most organisations here are, because they've got a long-standing history with BCC. A lot of our small community groups that have never done this before for the Earth Stories, that was quite a long process. It was taking 6 weeks to get them onto the system, which obviously meant a delay in getting the money. And then we actually lost quite a few organisations because they, it isn't how they work. But as a council, unfortunately, there are so many checks and balances we need to have in place to make sure that the money isn't being laundered or what have you, and they are real organisations. So, but for most people here, I think that's not going to be an issue, because, for most organisations, I should say, shouldn't be an issue because we already have a relationship with you. So, So yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure other people had an opportunity to come in. So, you know, Nassim, Sam, oh, Gary's put his hand up as well. So, but just to make, you know, I wanted to make sure that, you know, Nassim, Sam, Mac, anything more, or Amit as well. I can't see Amit for some reason. I'm not sure if Amit's had to leave. I'm not sure, maybe he has. But yeah, if anybody else has any other points to make. But Gary, I know you had your hand up. Do you want to come in while the people are thinking?
Sorry, no, that was a legacy hand from earlier still up, just taking it down, sorry.
That's okay, no problem, no problem. Okay, that's great, Mac. Thank you. So I think this has been a really useful conversation, and there's still more for us to work out. There'll always be more questions, and we can work on that. You know, I think having a clause in there that, you know, there is a chance to review the MOU on a regular basis. We don't have to say what that is. You know, even after we've just set up the alliance and the MOU needs to be revisited, we'll do that. It's not a problem at all, because this has to work for everyone that's involved in it. So. Okay, Debbie's been instrumental in getting this off the ground. So it would be completely remiss of me to not bring Debbie in and ask if there's anything more from you, any requests that you have of the group, or anything you want to kind of really reiterate.
With my temporary, very temporary project manager hat on, while we haven't got anybody to manage the project, I would just say that even going through it now, I think we need that clarity around the fact that the alliance is bigger than the project, but the funding is for the project. So Kat has, you know, the Commonwealth Games coordinator has made it very clear that we have to be very, you know, lay out in the beginning the milestones and the targets for the project funding. However, why do one thing at a time when you could do two things at a time and confuse everyone? We're also building a bigger alliance that's the future, you know, that's 5 years and then 25 years, that isn't all about the project. And because it's a project and you have to give milestones and targets, it will have a scope, and we might be able to, you know, flex that scope a little bit. But as you all know, because I know you all apply for funding, and you know that there is only a certain degree that you can do that, and they need us to guarantee some delivery for this funding. And I'm going to say, Hamira hasn't, but BCC has applied for the funding, so BCC will be responsible for delivering those project outcomes. So even if you all decided to just stay at home and have a cup of tea, BCC would have to still deliver the project. So please don't. Please stay part of the alliance, because we love you. We're going to give you some money.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say. Yeah. You're right, Debbie. We should have made that clear. You know, it is very much, you know, by you guys engaging with this, you're doing us a massive favour. You really are. It's kind of, you don't have to. You could just say, do you know what, we've got our funding, we've got what we need to do, we don't need this extra complication. And if everyone here decided, actually, we're not going to be part of this, Debbie's right. Commonwealth Games is expecting an outcome from this, and we as the FPA that has, which is BCC, because that's the way in which the money has flown from our National Trust funders, BCC are responsible for delivering it. So it's not kind of that, well, I don't know, in contract terms it might feel as though it's subcontracting. I really hope it doesn't feel like that, because that isn't our intention at all. But at the end of the day, yeah, BCC has to deliver this for the Commonwealth Games, otherwise there's going to be huge questions asked. You know, not least from Cabinet, who have signed it off and want to see outcomes for the population. So you're absolutely right, Debbie. We really hope we're not in that situation. But you know, no one can force your hand to be part of this. But going back to what I started off with, we know there's been huge goodwill, and you know, and I really sense a really sense that people care about this passionately and want to see it work. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had this many meetings and this consistent attendance. So, so for that, I'm hugely grateful. Andy, Mr. Lindop.
Hello. Yeah, sorry if this has already been discussed at future meetings, but as I'm a newcomer, is there an intention for this group to become a constituted group, or is it as far as the MOU? I'm just thinking further down the line for potential funding opportunities, etc. If it was independent of the council, I would have thought it would need to become a constituted group. Just a thought.
That's a big question, Andy.
Okay.
Can I jump in before anybody makes any rash statements, Andy?
Oh, sorry.
No. We started off looking at a foundation that would have been an organisation with a bank account and a constitution.
Right.
At the moment, we are at the point of collaboration. So the organisations stay individual.
Mm-hmm.
And work together, including working together around funding. This is not normal, and this hasn't, as far as we know, been attempted before.
Right.
But that's what we're attempting to do now. What we don't know in the future, and it's part of that development and evolution, is will it actually, I mean, Gareth sort of alluded to it, will there be a natural path that the Alliance finds that in the end there should be an alliance organisation that's got a foundation, that's got a constitution and a bank account and everything. But at the moment, it's a collaboration of separate organisations bringing their funding, their skills, their ideas, their goals all together to try and achieve the City of Nature vision. So not yet.
Cool. Cheers.
Thank you, Debbie. And there's a really good question, Andy. And it's kind of where we started. It is where we started, and but a lot of places that have got a Parks Foundation. So Vic might be able to kind of speak a bit more here, but Bristol didn't really have a strong green space organisation. We've got quite a few in Birmingham. Linked to nature, linked to interest in green spaces, linked to volunteering. Thanks so much, Gareth, and I hope your little girl's okay. Really welcome your contribution today. So that's really important as well, that we recognise that we've had that. We had a really big workshop right last August, I think it was, and it was really strong feeling that if we didn't need that at this point, let's try a different way of doing it first and seeing if we can, as a collaborative, find that way of working together in a more coordinated way. And I think one of the real tests of the Alliance will be about the sustainable funding, because as you say, Andy, normally it's one group, they'll apply for a bid and they'll get the money into the bank and then they'll divvy it out to all kind of spend it how they need to. I can completely see a way that this would work. If you don't mind, Chris, me using BOSIF as an example. So BOSIF support community groups to put bids in, which is different to community organisations, kind of like BOSIF itself, or CRT, or Wildlife Trust, or the Children's Trust. But actually, what they do is they say, right, groups, what kind of funding, what kind of things do you need money for? We will work with a grant writer who, Andy, get grants, writes a bid, a really good bid, and then the group has to submit it. Now, that model will be quite difficult if we just focus on community groups. There's no reason why that model couldn't work in terms of saying, right, let's say get grants for argument's sake, says, well, okay, organisations A, B, C, D, and E, any of these are on the call that are business team members, okay. You've seen, you've got the action plans that we need for the next 5 wards or whatever it is. So what kind of funding do you need and for what to be able to do those actions going forward in the future? And I will help you write a bid maybe, but someone's got to coordinate that still. So that's really interesting actually, Debbie. So that would, you almost like, you have a partner who almost is not the banker or the treasurer, but is coordinating kind of how that funding, let's, again, for arguments, maybe we put 30k in the pot for that, to say as a grant, we'll give an organisation 30k to help make that happen. We've still got to work through all this, but Chris, do you want to come in there? Because I've been talking about bosses.
Yeah, no, I and Debbie's just put it in the chat as well, and I think the opportunity with collaborative bids led by one of the business partners or alliance members, but with others named in there as getting part of that bid is quite doable, and it happens day in, day out. You know, with organisations in the same sector. It's happened particularly a lot with the 2 stages of the Green Recovery Programme, you know, with some success and with some failure. You know, lottery again, look for partnership applications. So I think all the, you know, all the potential for partnership applications is there. But the key thing we need to remember, which I think, you know, is an important point to make, is that they need to be collaborative and not one of us going off on a not going off on a tangent, but you know, applying for money without talking to the rest of those in the group or in the room, if it's for the alliance or for alliance related stuff. And I think that will be key, because we all know, certainly as third sector leaders, we all know how competitive the funding environment is. And we all, you know, we've all been there where we've sat there and gone, well, why have so-and-so applied for this money? Actually, if they talked to us, the bid would have been stronger. And I think that's something we all absolutely need to remember as we go through.
Thank you for that, Chris. That kind of extra insight there. So, and what Debbie was saying about actually remembering that the alliance is bigger than this little project in Borsley and Highgate and the next 5 wards. So it's almost like we were talking yesterday in a Green Champions session that it was a final one. Somebody shared a link to an Eco Fest at the MAC in Cannon Hill Park, and so many people, even though they are green champions, they've got an interest in nature, an interest in the environment, hardly anybody had heard of it. And it was just that point of reflection, is that there are so many people with an interest in nature and the environment, but communication is still really difficult. So actually for me, and I was going to say, don't you know, obviously the outcomes of Commonwealth Games is really important and we can't forget that, but bigger than that is how this alliance actually really sorts communication out and sharing of information in a way that it's just, you know, these kind of things are common knowledge, and we've got a slick way of doing it and an easy way of doing it. So it just really struck me, and I like to think of myself as quite connected to nature and the environment. I couldn't believe we had this on our doorstep happening on Sunday. So yeah, not everyone does use social media. No, they don't. So we need to find different ways of doing it. Word of mouth works really well. So yeah. Okay, folks, I think unless there's anything else, we can call this meeting to a close. And what I will do is send out another version of the MOU, which will then accompany any of this kind of. Absolutely, Chris. Yeah, couldn't agree with that more, really. Very much. Sorry, I'm just, yeah. I told you I can't multitask. In terms of, yeah, the MOU, I will amend it so you'll see a version 6 come out later this week, and we will use that alongside any paperwork that goes out for the grant process. And, you know, we'd really encourage as many people to be thinking about working collaboratively for that as well. And we're really excited to see what comes back, I think, because I think that's fair to say, Debbie. We've been waiting for this moment for quite a long time. It'd be really, really great to start seeing things happen. And as Gareth said, I agree with him. We're not ready to do everything in October, so we will wait because we've got time, and we're not going to rush it. You don't often get £150,000 from the council to spend on something like this, so we need to spend it wisely. So okay, unless there's any more questions, folks, I'll just wait for a few seconds, see if any hands go up. But otherwise, yeah, it's really great to see you folks here. Just to again reiterate, I've mentioned on Monday, so Andy's our chair for our operations group for BCC. So that's the counterpart to the community side of things. So Andy's chairing a meeting on Monday. The invite, well, the time and date has gone out, and no one's yet expressed an interest or is able to join because it is quite short notice. But as we get through to as we get a stronger membership and a more kind of firm membership, then we'll keep that as an open invite to people who want to be part of that. So so we will feed back on how that meeting went as well to Alliance members, because the overlap is critical, really. So it'll all come together quite soon. I'm confident of it. So okay, folks. So I'm going to give you back 22 minutes of your life to either grab a coffee, go for a walk, smell a flower, or just have a power nap if you need it as well. So, and thanks again for your time, folks. We really do value this, and I think we've made some great progress. So have a good day all, and no doubt we'll speak soon. Okay, take care for now. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Bye.